Welcome in to Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. It's Tuesday. I hope all of you are having fantastic days so far, that everybody is having a sterling time. Let me know if the notification went out on Twitter. In fact, I can just go ahead and check and make sure that it did. We are off and running here with Outkick the Show, and I think, boys and girls, we are going to have a really good time here. All right, several things to get to, but first we begin, as we always do, with my telling you to go to sportsbookreview.com. The ACC tournament, I believe I'm correct, starts today. Am I right about that? I know tomorrow the SEC tournament starts. All of the big basketball tournaments, with the exception of the Big Ten, which took place last weekend in New York City, are now off and running. Congrats to Bruce Pearl and to Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes in particular for being the SEC Coach of the Year. I would encourage you to go check out the Outkick podcast. We had Bruce Pearl on the show this morning for 20 minutes. He was fantastic. I love Coach Pearl at Auburn. Go subscribe and listen to the podcast at Outkick. All you got to go is go to iTunes and search out Outkick. Now, you want to gamble. I know a lot of you love to gamble. Go to sportsbookreview.com. Make sure that you get the best information, the best lines, know where to go. Sportsbookreview.com. They are the presenting sponsor of this Outkick the Show. I also want to tell you, on Friday, I'm driving up to St. Louis with my buddy Chad Withrow. We are going to the SEC tournament games on Friday and Saturday in St. Louis. Don't know exactly what those games will be, but know that we're going to be there because of my friends at thehomeloanexpert.com. It's spring. Wherever you are in the country, if you are in Birmingham, if you are in Nashville, if you are in Dallas, if you are in Houston, if you're in New York City, Chicago, LA, Boston, wherever you may find yourself, you can share your location geographically. I always enjoy seeing those. I would encourage you to share your locations in here. You can go to thehomeloanexpert.com and make sure you get pre-qualified. Spring is going to be here shortly. Time is changing this weekend, and by the way, we should never change the time again. When the time changes, I'm telling you, that's when people get hot out on the streets for new homes, and it's going to be competitive all over the country for your brand new mortgage. Wherever you are in the country right now, it's tough to get out there and buy the home that you want without competition. The best way to ensure that you get it, make sure that you got the right mortgage in place with my friends at thehomeloanexpert.com. Get hooked up now. You'll be glad that you did. Go to thehomeloanexpert.com. All right, several things that I want to get to. One, the Oscar ratings are officially in, and there have never been fewer people watch the Oscars than this past year. 26 million people watched the Oscars this past year. How bad is that? I took a picture of a screenshot of the recent ratings. All right. This is over the last 10 years. 32 million, 37 million, 42 million, 38 million, 40 million, 40 million, 44 million, 37, 34, 33, all the way down to 26.5 million losers. Now, I watched, but I find it to be utterly fascinating. I think if you look at all the data out there, and I'm going to put this in my book, which I hope you guys are going to buy this fall, the numbers are starting to reflect something. People are tired of politics. People are tired of politically being told what they need to think all day long, every day, about every possible subject. The Grammy ratings were down 24%. The Oscars were down 20%. The NFL was down double digits. Facebook is down double digits on interactivity. And I got myself thinking, I just wrote about this in a chapter in my book. Maybe, just maybe, my grandma was right when she told me, don't ever talk about politics and don't ever talk about religion with people that you don't know really well. And even if you know them really well, you probably shouldn't still talk about politics and about religion. She said, because everybody thinks something different. And opinions are just like butts. Everybody's got one. And if you want to share your opinion, that's fine. But don't be out there trying to tell people that their opinions are always wrong and that you have the perfect answer. And you know what? I don't get on Facebook very much in my personal life because I spend so much of my public life out on the social media streets. When I do occasionally jump into Facebook, what I want to see is maybe different than what you guys want to see. I want to see my friends' kids. I want to see their vacation pictures. I want to see their new house. I want to hear how their life is going. I certainly don't want to hear what they think about the Second Amendment. I don't expect that my opinions are going to change forever on abortion because I happen to scroll through Facebook and see what somebody's opinion is on abortion. And I think about this a lot in the world of sports. People say, oh, you talk about politics a lot. And I do. But how often am I telling you what your opinion should be? I'll share my opinion, and typically it's pretty middle of the road. But it's not very often I'm coming on and saying, hey, your opinion on abortion is wrong. I tell you what I believe, and I tell you you can believe it. It's not very often you sit down and watch this show and you're like, I'm Clay Travis. I'm going to tell you why your opinion on guns and gays are totally wrong in every world, every facet. I tell you what I think. You can agree or disagree, and then we move right along. And I tell you, guess what? That no matter what your opinion is, I don't think you're an awful human being. I think there's probably a reasonable basis for why you have your opinion and why your opinion can be different than mine. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care if you have no interest in religion at all. I don't care who you voted for president. I want every single person on the planet to enjoy my radio show and to enjoy my Periscope and my Facebook. And if you happen to have the same political beliefs as me, that's great. And if you happen to have different political beliefs, that's great too, because I believe in something crazy called the First Amendment. And I was watching the show on Sunday night, the Oscars, and I was watching it with my wife, and I said, I want you to just watch this. Tell me something that conservatives do. I'm saying this as a middle-of-the-road person. Tell me something that conservatives do that is politically aggressive as what you're going to see on the Oscars. And I'm saying that as a guy who has a lot of sympathy with socially liberal politics. But when I watch the Oscars, I'm not watching it to see what people think about American immigration policy. I don't want, in fact, to care at all about what people on the Oscars think about American immigration policy. I want them to make the best, most entertaining movies that they can. If, as part of that movie, they take a political stance, that's fine, as long as it makes the story better. But I certainly don't need or want to spend 4 hours watching Hollywood praise itself because of how woke they are. I said this yesterday. The Oscar ratings collapsed by 20%, and the Grammys were down 24%. I think a big reason why is not because people suddenly stopped liking music or stopped liking movies. It's that they don't want to be lectured to all day long. That's all you get now. People who are telling you Trump is great. People who are telling you that Trump is awful. People who are telling you the world's awful. The world's a disaster. That's what you hear all day long now. I happen to think America's pretty good. And that most of the decisions we make are pretty good. And I don't agree with anybody who's in the political realm, Republican or Democrat. But if I've got the fortune to have the Oscars on, I want Jimmy Kimmel to make me laugh. I want him to make a funny joke that makes me laugh and makes me forget about all the troubles that I have in my world going on right now. When I watch a sporting event, I want to see athletes transcend the physical limits of my body and your body and do things that we haven't seen before. I don't want them to tell me what they think about the national anthem. I want them to play basketball, football, hockey, or baseball better than has ever been done before. I don't want to watch the NCAA tournament and think about the fact that players may protest. I want to watch the NCAA tournament and see who's going to win the game. And I think there are reasonable people that are starting to have these same opinions. That my grandmother back in the day, when she said it was a bad idea to get involved in religion or politics, was right. And there are a lot of CEOs that could learn a lot from her by doing the same thing. Did you see what Delta did? Delta gave a discount to the NRA that 13 people, I think it was, took. And then they took away the discount from the NRA, and it cost them $50 million. And here I am thinking something crazy. I don't care what Delta thinks about the NRA. Am I insane for wanting to get on an airplane and not have any opinion at all about not need to have an opinion for an airline about what they think about the Second Amendment? When I get on Southwest, because I fly out of Nashville all the time, and I get on the airplane, do you know how many times I have thought while I was on that airplane, I wonder what Southwest Airlines' position is on abortion or the Second Amendment? Do you know how many times I've ever thought that? Zero. Because that's not what they're in the business of doing. I've thought a lot about why Southwest Airlines' Wi-Fi doesn't work better. I've thought a lot about why Delta's Wi-Fi doesn't work better. If I'm the CEO of Delta and I get a chance to talk to him, here's what I'm going to tell him. First of all, don't kick my kids off when they have lice. Second, fix the fucking Wi-Fi. I don't care about your opinions on the Second Amendment. Can we not get every airline group together and have them make the best motherfucking Wi-Fi in the history of the planet so that when I'm in the air, I never lose my internet signal? I don't understand how this is so complicated. There's 150 people on a plane. Presume that all of them want to get on the internet and use the most possible bandwidth they could ever use. And then triple it and make that your Wi-Fi plan. And then everybody can do whatever they want on Wi-Fi. Those are the things that I care about when I'm on the plane. Is the plane going to land or crash? Is the plane going to be on time? These are things that if I'm the CEO of an airline, I care about. Am I going to drag my customers off the plane if they refuse to leave and force them to be hospitalized? All of these are directly things that people have opinions on. Now, individuals in their private lives can have whatever their opinion needs to be, but Delta motherfucking Airlines does not need a policy on the Second Amendment. They don't. The CEO should have said, you know what? Second Amendment's pretty complicated. Been a lot of court cases on the Second Amendment over the last 250 years. I think it's unlikely that an airline is going to solve Second Amendment issues in this country. Therefore, our position on it is let the American democracy resolve it. In the meantime, we're just not going to get involved in politics. I don't know why that's such an easy and such a crazy idea. I don't know this desire out there for everybody to figure out what corporation is and what their politics is. This particularly applies in sports. Why did ESPN decide to get political? I have no idea. I don't need to know what somebody thinks about politics when they work in sports. Now, I'm a little bit different. I tell you everything. You know everything about me. I pull up my phone and tell you what porn videos I just looked at. I try to be as honest as I possibly can be. I'll tell you how I voted. I'll tell you my opinion literally on anything under the sun. That's what I do here. And I hope that you enjoy it. But I certainly don't think that you should agree with me on anything necessarily. I think I'm right, but you think you're right. That's the beautiful thing about opinions. Everybody who has an opinion thinks theirs is right. And so I don't know how we've ended up in this place where Jimmy fucking Kimmel, the guy who used to be on The Man Show talking to juggies and having them jump on trampolines, now thinks he needs to be America's national moral conscience when it comes to health care. Hey, Jimmy, tell a joke. Make the Oscars more fun than they otherwise would be. Don't sit around and pretend that this Me Too stuff that you're hosting, Meet the Press. I don't need it. I don't want it. America doesn't need it. They don't want it. If you want to be active in politics, run for the Senate in California. Then your political opinions matter a great deal. Until then, shut up and try and make me laugh. And the same thing is true of all those actors. I wasn't planning on giving you a big rant here, but if your gift is to act, Why do you also think that suddenly when you win an Oscar, you're going to stand up and convince me that my opinion about abortion is wrong? That's probably an opinion that I've worked towards for years. I'm pro-choice. You can disagree with me. I completely understand your agreement or disagreement. I'm pro-gay marriage because I think gay people should be as miserable as everybody else. But if you disagree with that, you are certainly welcome to disagree with it. And I'm not going to sit around preaching to you all day that you're wrong, because that's not my job. My job is to show up, hopefully make you a little bit smarter, hopefully make you a little bit more educated about a variety of stories. And if you look at the rundown today, it's also to talk about Nashville's mayor getting fired because she banged her bodyguard and lied about it. Several things to get to. There's also a fake Me Too lawsuit where ESPN now is marinating in its own left-wing stupidity. I'm going to read you one of the allegations from this lawsuit, and I'm actually going to defend PC Bomani Jones, who says women have to be believed when they make every possible accusation. I do something crazy. I look at every factual bit of evidence that I can in every story, and I come up with an opinion. Okay? Sometimes that opinion is a woman was sexually assaulted or raped. Other times, it's that a woman was not sexually assaulted or raped. Sometimes my opinion is, oh, that was a racist thing that shouldn't have happened. Other times, my opinion is, oh, that's not racist, this is stupid. I'm like the only person in America who still does that. Everybody else is so worked up with what their particular worldview is that they actually support whatever their worldview is over whatever the facts of a particular case are. I told you I didn't think Ezekiel Elliott beat up anybody and didn't deserve to get suspended. And a lot of people say, well, how can you say that in this era of domestic violence? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Just because domestic violence exists doesn't mean that every allegation of domestic violence is true. And just because racism exists doesn't mean that every allegation of racism is true either. We have reached a strange place in the world where people are swinging right past fair and impartial justice and swinging right into a new form of bias. And it's, if you're a white man, you're wrong. It doesn't matter what the details actually show. So, here's the straight truth. Megan Barry resigned this morning at the Nashville courthouse after pleading guilty. If you're not familiar with this story, it has captivated Nashville. It's like the Nashville television show. Megan Barry had an affair with her bodyguard. She was caught in that affair. She claimed that she was not going to resign. Turns out that her bodyguard was making hundreds of thousands of dollars in overtime to guard her body. And by guard her body, I mean penetrate her vagina with his penis. As a result, he was being paid for sex, and she was traveling all over the country and all over the world with this professional penis. And this professional penis man made hundreds of thousands of dollars by using his penis to put it in her vagina. And as a result, she has now resigned, and this has turned into a huge scandal. And I'm going to tell you what, I said this at the time, I continue to say it. This security guard had to be deep dicking her. Has to have an incredible dick to be in his 50s and drive a grown-ass woman insane such that she has an affair with him, such that she does it for several years. You talk about 50 Cent having the magic stick. This security guard must have a Steve McNair-like dick. He must have been twirling it around, like throwing it out in the road, like letting her play Skip to My Lou on his dick. I don't know, just like jump roping for heart, like using his dick as the jump rope. I don't know what was going on. But he had her having sex with him in the cemetery. He had her banging all over the place. She took him to Greece. Now, I don't think Megan Barry's husband here can be blamed completely. But if you found out that your spouse was going to Greece for 6 days and the only person she was going with was a male security guard, and wouldn't you think to yourself, wait a minute, how many people in Greece actually know who the mayor of Nashville is? How many people watching this show right now who live outside of Nashville even know who the mayor of Nashville is? If you have the jump rope for heart dick guy going on a plane with her all the way to Greece for 6 days, I think you have to believe that something fishy might be going on with your wife. not an expert on their interpersonal relationship, but if you go overseas to Europe with someone you're not married to for 6 days, and you're the mayor of Nashville, and you're going there, and you're claiming that you need a bodyguard, I think maybe alarm bells should have gone off in this relationship. I think maybe, I'm not an expert, but if my wife said, hey, I'm going to Greece for 6 days, I said, all right, well, I'd like to go to Greece. I've never been there. She's like, no, you can't go, but I am going to take my security guard with me just to make sure I'm safe. Think that would fly? If I went to my wife right now and I said, hey, babe, I got this radio show in the morning. I got this Periscope and this Facebook. People are saying mean things to me on Twitter. I'm afraid that someone might try to kill me. She'd probably say, that's why we have a $20 million life insurance plan. So that if you get killed, I make a lot of money. Family never has to worry about it. So she might be rooting for me to get killed and or kill me herself. But if I said that as a result of all the threats that I've been getting, I've decided to hire a 25-year-old smoke show ninja assassin bodyguard. Looks just like Jennifer Lawrence in the Hunger Games. Got the bow and arrow and everything. And then we were going to go to Greece for 6 days. Would anybody out there think, oh, it's lucky for Clay Travis that he's got his 25-year-old ninja assassin Jennifer Lawrence doppelganger to protect him, because God forbid somebody in Greece could have an issue with what he said on Outkick, that we need to protect him. And by the way, I'm infinitely more famous than Megan Barry is. It's possible someone in Greece could know who I am. It's possible that could happen. Unlikely that one of them would want to kill me, but it's possible that could happen. If my wife let that happen, would any of you think to yourselves, never could have seen this coming? Would have never thought that Clay Travis might go to Greece with his smoking hot 25-year-old bodyguard and end up having an affair with her. I don't know how anybody could have foreseen this. I think this is a little bit on the husband. I'm just going to be out there. Yes, she shouldn't have slept with him, but I think it's a little bit on the husband. If you go to the Greek Riviera, I'm not sure there's a Greek Riviera, but there should be if there isn't. And by the way, some of you are like, well, her bodyguard wasn't that hot. He's pretty hot for a 55-year-old, and he's got a dick like a jump rope. That's got to count for something. If you're in your 50s and your dick works, trust me, I think you're probably pretty hot. There wouldn't be this huge Viagra market if all these dudes in their 50s had rock-hard dicks and it worked all the time, all right? A lot of dicks not working when you get into the 50s. You got a jump rope dick, and you got the ability to take care of the mayor. It's just like the movie The Bodyguard. Of course she fell in love with her bodyguard. Has nobody seen Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner's romantic love affair? You always fall in love with your bodyguard. I would probably fall in love with Jennifer Lawrence if I hired her to be my ninja assassin bodyguard. I love my wife. But Jennifer Lawrence is probably a really awesome bodyguard too. Just saying. Kind of on the husband as well. All right, did you guys see this? This is a ridiculous story. This is a ridiculous story. No pun intended. Final story of the day. My name is Clay Travis. Outkick the Show. Final story of the day here. There is a lawsuit that's been filed by this loser. I don't even know her name. I'm not even going to use her name because I don't know what it is. She worked for 2 years at ESPN. They didn't give her an offer. She's the woman who accused John Butchie Gross of trying to sleep with her. She's got a whole 93-page lawsuit. All these different allegations that are slowly being proven untrue. And as much as I rip ESPN, for some of the stupid decisions that they've made, I read a lot of the details in this lawsuit, and this is ESPN having to deal with the stupidity of the Me Too culture. Now, I want to be straightforward. Some women are sexually harassed at work. I'm not demeaning the legitimacy of all sexual harassment claims. But when Matt Damon said there's a difference between getting patted on the ass and getting raped, And everybody lined up and said, oh my God, this is so insensitive from Matt Damon. How in the world could he say this? We've lost our way as a society when a lot of women came out, including Minnie Driver, I believe is her name, the British chick from Good Will Hunting, who I always thought was reasonable, and said, Matt Damon, you can't try and say there's a difference between getting patted on the ass and rape. Well, wait, let's just think about this for a minute. You're telling me, if there's no difference, that if I went up to every woman in America and I said, you got two options. On the one hand, somebody might pat you on the ass. On the other hand, somebody is going to rape you. And I said, now I know this is difficult given how similar these two examples are, but I'm asking you to be honest with me. Would you prefer somebody slap you in the ass, or would you prefer to be raped? 100% of people would say they preferred to be slapped on the ass. Not that they wanted it to happen, but that they would prefer that it happen given the choice between the two. That, my friends, is how ration and logic and reason work. People have looked at all the crimes that exist in humanity, and they have decided that some are worse than others. I.e., you can get the death penalty in this country for murder. You cannot get the death penalty in this country for speeding. Now, it doesn't mean that speeding is right, but it means that if you had to choose between speeding or murder, you'd probably rather pay a $100 speeding ticket than go to jail for murder. And there certainly is a difference between the two. What we have lost in modern society is the ability to reason, to use our brains, and to distinguish between two different stories. So when Matt Damon said that, what he was really saying was, I don't believe that everything in America is Me Too. Harvey Weinstein is bad. There's a difference between Harvey Weinstein and what Ryan Seacrest was alleged to have done. There's a difference between Harvey Weinstein and what James Franco was alleged to have done. And regardless of where you are, what Bomani Jones is accused of in this complaint is not a crime, and it is not actionable. I want you all to listen to this. This is from the complaint of the woman who worked at ESPN for 2 years, who is suing them for sexual harassment. On or around November 7th of 2016, Mrs. Lawrence was preparing to leave the makeup room in Building 4, and Bomani Jones, the former co-host of ESPN's Highly Questionable, who was on campus to fill in on ESPN2, was seated in the makeup room. Standing by the door and dressed in a skirt, Mrs. Lawrence looked down to change her shoes and looked up to find Jones staring at her legs, ogling her, and intensely giving her, quote, elevator eyes, as he slowly looked her up and down in a sexualized manner, making Miss Lawrence feel extremely uncomfortable, another long-standing practice at ESPN. In her sexual harassment lawsuit, she has alleged as follows. A man looked at her and appeared to find her attractive while doing so. Moreover, he looked at her legs, he looked at her chest, and he looked at her face, and he did so while suggesting that he found her attractive without actually saying a word. This is now sexual harassment. I got to tell you, it's insane. It is absolutely insane, the culture that a place, frankly, like ESPN has helped to create, where you allow this left-wing victimization culture to run so rampant that people don't even realize what's normal and abnormal and acceptable and unacceptable behavior anymore. Here is what will always be acceptable. It will always be acceptable to be a man and look at a woman. That is not legally actionable. It will also be acceptable to be a man and look at a woman and think to yourself, damn, that's a good looking woman. She looks good in those clothes. And it's also permissible while you're in your own head to think, she looks good in those clothes, but I bet she looks better outside of those clothes. Which is literally the very foundation of the human species. Looking at a woman and finding her attractive is how I came to exist, and it's how you came to exist, and it's how the human species has continued to exist. It is the very foundation of our biology. That men should look at women and find them to be attractive, and that women occasionally, to their great esteem, should look at men and find us to also be attractive. And that when two different people look at each other and both find each other to be attractive, that one day they might produce children who also will grow up and hopefully one day find somebody else to be attractive with them. This, my friends, is not sexual harassment. There is not anything wrong with this at all. Even her allegation being published and taken seriously by members of the sports media is evidence of how absurd our standards have become. As stupid as I think many of Bomani Jones's opinions are, and as much of a PC Bromani as he is, always out there trumpeting the farthest of the far left-wing political opinions, I will defend anyone when they are wrongfully charged with stupid accusations, and that is what's going on with the entirety of the ESPN lawsuit. It's amazing to me that we've allowed this culture to exist where we haven't just called out people who are full of crap like this woman. She can file whatever lawsuit she wants. ESPN, so far as I've seen, no man did anything wrong. They tried to sometimes sleep with an attractive woman. When that becomes a crime, we've ended up in a strange place in America. When you can't even look at an attractive single woman while being an attractive single man without her putting your name in a lawsuit and the media all covering you as if you are some sexual deviant, we have ended up in a strange place. My show isn't wild. It's about reasonable people with decent opinions and reasonable thought processes making America better than it already is. Don't allow the idiots to win. Don't allow the absurdists out there to attract all of the attention. Be reasonable. Be a radical moderate. Join me in the quest for sanity in an insane country. I love all of you. Thank you for watching the show. If you enjoyed it, share it. We'll be live tomorrow, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, as we always are. Good show coming for you tomorrow morning. Go download the podcast from this morning. I'm Clay Travis. If you like the show, you'll like the site as well, Outkick.com. More good stuff coming your way. In the meantime, DBAP, don't be a pussy. Love all of you. I'll see you tomorrow.